Morning. Good morning, Tina.
Hello, Dwayne.
Hello, John. Kaysville, are y'all connected?
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all sound real excited back there. Am I that boring?
There's a
No,
few strangers on the ground.
That was the correct answer, by the way. No. Thanks for playing. Okay, what about Southside? Are y'all connected?
we're here.
All right. I hope everybody had a good weekend.
We did. I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
And kind of following up our last week's discussion about pricing of cattle dropping, and in this week's Lancaster Farming, the state of Virginia cattleman director, his suggestion to all the cattle folks was to sell all their heifers. He said the price is the lowest price since 1970. And my question is the price is so low, who's going to buy them?
The price is low.
There's the
It's the other side, yeah.
who's going. They'll end up going to feedlots. The reason
Okay.
the guy is making that suggestion is to cut down the number of breeding animals, to cut down the inventory. When prices were really high, everybody retained their heifers, and I think there were probably more cattle out there than were actually reported, and we got a pretty big increase in cattle, and that were being marketed, and the cow herd expanded quicker than the officials thought they were. And just like everything else, I personally thought we were in a bubble with those high prices. I don't think they were sustainable. When you could go to a restaurant and order lobster for the same price you order a steak, that's not very sustainable in my book. It's I knew it was going to crash, and it was just a matter of time. Now, how long it will take for the market to correct itself, I don't know. I think it'll take a few years. And I remember one of my teachers in college said that if you can make money when the prices are down, then that's the time you can either get into it or you expand your herd, because you can do it cheaply and buy pretty good genetics and do it fairly reasonably, and be in a position for when the prices go low.
Okay.
So it'll
I have
be.
one more.
Go ahead.
Oh, I had one more question after reading the chapter on cattle and the dairy section, and I know nothing about this, so my question might be a stupid one. But they kind of talking about docking the dairy cow. They said that probably don't need to do it anymore, suggesting because of the way the cows are milked, and by docking them, by removing their tails, you prevent them from keeping the flies off of them. I didn't know if that was a big issue or not.
What they said's true. It will. Cattle use their tail to swat flies. Uh, Let me find. I'm trying to find a picture here and show you why tails are docked. Let me see if I can download this. See if they'll get it. I'm trying to find some pictures here. What, it is it does cause a little stress when it happens. They cut the tail between the tailbones and dock them. And the reason for they do that, Keith, is for sanitation and also for convenience. Because those cow tails get manure on them, and for the dock, it's a little bit, you don't have that manure there. I'm trying to find some pictures. And all right, let me see if this will get bigger. That one's not getting any bigger. I'm sorry. What? Crap! Come on, load up. What a lot of dairy farms are going to now. Let me see if I got some pictures that I took in the dairy farm. Hold on. I forgot about these. Give me a second to upload these, and I'll get them on. There are different styles of milking parlors. They're very varied, from being sideways to coming in and milking from the tail, from behind the leg, from between the legs. This picture, I don't know how well you can see it. It's from Stevens Dairy in Whitfield, Virginia. And these cows come in, and you can see the guy putting on the milking machine directly behind the cow, between the two rear legs. And farms that have this type of setup generally dock the tail, because the tail swaps them in the face and on the arms, and gets on the milking equipment. Let me see if I can rotate that. That's a little bit more clear. There's other setups where the cows are in. They're lined up head to tail, and they'll put the milking machines on, right before that rear leg to access that udder. And some of those people don't. A lot of those producers don't, and I may be making a general mistake. Many of them don't dock the tail. You'll see the tails docked a lot in this type of milking parlor, just for sanitation reasons. And the other thing too, by docking the tails, like they said, they don't have a way to swap flies. And what they don't tell you is, a lot of these cows are in confinement situations all the time, like this barn here. They just kind of hang out in the barns. And in the summertime, they have extensive fans and air blowing on them for cooling, and a misting system in there for those cows to keep them comfortable. And flies don't like to be around where there's a lot of moving air. So those fans really help with the fly control. As to whether or not it needs to be done, I think for sanitation, it's a good idea. Docking the tail, it's not it is somewhat painful. I don't know if they use it, they use a local anesthetic or not. I don't know how they do that. I'll be honest with you, but it's not, it doesn't last forever, and it's more for sanitary reasons, cleanliness.
Okay, well, thank you.
Hopefully that answers your question. That's kind of what we're going to talk about today as part of this chapter on dairy. And Thursday, when we were here, we finished up we were talking about how milk production increased in the last 40 to 50 years. The number of dairy farms have declined, but the number of cows the farms are milking is greatly increased. And this increase in milk production is mainly due to genetics. Genetics made a big impact in animal agriculture, especially in dairy. Now, when we're thinking about animal management, whether it's beef cattle, sheep, dairy, hogs, record keeping is very important. We have to document. We need to document. And we need to keep production records on our animals because, this is a business to us. Our livelihood depends on it. And I may sound harsh, but it's just a reality. You can keep a good cow or a good horse or whatever for the same price you can keep a sorry one. Okay? That sorry cow is going to eat about as much as a good cow will. But the good cow is going to raise you a better calf. The good dairy cow is going to give you more milk. The good horse is going to perform better for you. Same thing with cows, ewes, whatever species you're talking about. And record keeping in animal agriculture is very important. In agriculture in general, whether it's plant science, keeping records on your fields and the production records from the fields to whatever you're doing. Everything needs to be measured because that way you can track your progress and or lack of progress, and you have something to go by for making management decisions. The dairy industry and the swine industry, when it comes to record keeping, there's record keeping galore. Okay? They keep records on milk production. They keep records on how much they eat, how many pounds of milk, what's the milk fat content, what's the somatic cell count of that milk. Somatic cell count is an indication of a disease, usually mastitis, and they're white cells that form those antibodies to fight infection, and so they monitor that somatic cell count on cows until when they start getting infected. They keep records. Some of these dairy farms are very, very high tech. They have ankle bracelets on them that and chain around their neck with a little electronic, just like a dog collar, basically, with a little electronic tag on there or an electronic ear tag. And every time they come in to milk, it gets red. The computer keeps up with how many pounds of milk they're producing. It keeps up, and I have seen it with, on egg raising sites. Keeps up with how many steps they walk, because the number of steps they walk indicate if that cow is starting to come into estrus, rebreed, or bred back. It also indicates whether or not she's starting to get sick. If she's starting to get sick, don't feel good, she's not walking around. They keep records on everything. And record systems are going to be one of your most important. The book says specifically talking about it for dairy, but it's that way with any agriculture. It's your most important management tool, because it provides you facts when it comes to decision making on feed, which cows to get rid of, which ones, what's your production on these cows, got to get rid of this cow. It tells you when to breed these dairy cows, when you need to dry them off. Records put everything black and white. A lot of these farmers, think that we're harsh, but they're not. They love their animals. They're out there in the streets, breaking stuff. They're out there in the weather.
Dwayne, when you swivel, we can't hear you.
Okay. The old farmers get to know these cattle or their hogs. And, they get favorites, and there's certain cows they like. And so sometimes decisions are based on emotion instead of facts. And by having a good set of records, we can make decisions based on facts. From production records to financial records. We're looking at buying a piece of equipment. Can we afford that? Is the operation going to pay for it? These are all where records come into play, guys. Can I afford to hire an extra man? So records, they're your most important management tool. Now with dairy, a lot of these dairy farmers on these on their cows, I did tell you that they have to be bred. They have to have a calf every year. And we talked a little bit about how they pull those calves off shortly there, right after birth, and they just start milking them and they bottle feed the calves. A lot of these cows, the majority of dairy cows are bred through artificial insemination. And what that is, in case you don't know, there are companies like Select Sires, American Breeder Service, Gen X. They have bulls. They go out and they try to find the best genetically superior bulls in the industry. And they collect those bulls. They collect the semen from those bulls. They dilute it down. They freeze the semen. And then they sell it to producers. And the producers can buy the semen. And when that cow is in estrus, then they can inseminate her with that semen. And that's what a lot of the dairy farms do. And that's why they've made such great genetic progress in the last several years, is that these companies have found, they pinpoint these genetically superior bulls. They do it in beef. They do it in the swine industry. They do it in the poultry industry. They do it in the horse industry. Breeds, certain breeds. Some breeds don't allow the shipping of semen. The thoroughbred, the jockey club with the thoroughbreds. For a mare to be bred through artificial insemination, the stud has to be on the farm. But the Quarter Horse Association and Paint Horse, they allow the semen to be shipped. So, we're increasing our we're getting genetically superior animals than what we had. We've talked about reproduction being your most economically important trait. Your animals have to get bred and breed. Dairy industry, it's crucial. Every day, their goal after the dairy cow calves, their goal is to have her bred back in 90 days. For each day that she goes past 90 days, they lose money because that cow now is not going to be on a 12-month calving interval. And nutrition and reproduction go hand in hand. It's that simple. If you don't feed these cows properly, they're not going to reproduce. They're not going to produce milk, the amount of milk they should, or have the weight gain if you got beef cattle. And those beef cows aren't going to milk the way they should milk either for their calves. So nutrition is crucial, okay? Not only on the production side of it, but for reproduction. It's been scientifically proven over and over again the high correlation between nutrition and reproduction. And when we're thinking of dairy farms, the primary focus, we think of it being milk production, but management for those cows are going to revolve around reproduction. They've got to get them bred back. And there's a lot of technology out there that we can use, that producers have availability to use, from hormones to artificial insemination, ultrasound. We can go in there and ultrasound that cow to see the size of that follicle when she's going to ovulate. We can go in there and ultrasound her to see if she's pregnant. We can ultrasound her to see what sex the calf is that she's carrying. A lot of technologies are available now. There's aids out there too that help us determine whether a cow is in estrus or is in heat. There's heat strips you can put. They call them heat strips. They're just it's just a pad. You glue, it's sticky on one side, and you put it up there right in front of the tail head. And when a cow is in heat, other cows will mount her, and she'll stand there. And when that heat pad when a cow mounts, that heat pad, that friction makes it change colors. Some type of chemical reaction. Yeah, you can put chalk on there. They'll rub it off, or paint. There's all sorts of aids. They work great. We just used to go up to Lowe's and buy some weird color of paint nobody would buy that they wanted to get rid of, and we painted those tail heads with paint. They could be neon green or pink or whatever, purple, and it'd make the hair lay down flat when those cows and heifers came into heat and they started being rode by other cows and heifers. It would get scruffed up, and you could tell it would help identify the cattle in heat. It works, and it's cheap. That's right. Now, with dairy cows, the mammary gland produces the milk, which is the udder. And that udder is divided into 4 compartments. They have basically it's 4 separate glands, to be honest with you. And because it's divided in four, each of those compartments is called a quarter. And at the end of the quarter, it goes down to a teat, and then the milk comes out of that teat. And we'll get more into that as in the chapter on dairy farming, and talk about the anatomy of the udder and the teat canal. But cows now, an average cow will produce about 29,000 pounds of milk a year. If you think pints a pound to the world around, that old saying we learned years ago. So 29,000 pounds is going to be 29,000 pints, right? And there's 8 pints to a gallon. Hang on a second. Be 29,000 divided by, right? That's about 3,030 or about 3,600 gallons of milk a year per cow. That's a lot of milk. Now, milk, there's the ingredients of milk. You have milk fat. There's fat cells in milk. There's milk sugar. The milk sugar is called lactose. So people that are lactose intolerant, we all know somebody, if it's not ourselves, that are lactose intolerant. They can't drink milk or eat ice cream. Fortunately, I'm not one of those people. I can eat ice cream and I can drink milk. My wife, unfortunately, is lactose intolerant. So she has to be careful on her dairy product. She has to take a over-the-counter drug called Lactaid that helps her, keeps her from having upset stomachs when she eats ice cream. But milk contains milk fat, milk sugar, and milk protein. And then it also contains vitamins and minerals and some water. So it's a very good product, very healthy product. Now, milking cows, it's a job. A lot of jobs are available for milkers if you want to be a milker. And it's the most important job on the dairy, okay, if you're a milker. They have to be milked at regular times. A lot of dairy farms milk 2 times a day. Some dairy farms milk 3 times a day. And there's a strict protocol that you need to follow. We're talking, this is going directly to your food. We're drinking this stuff. And so we want it as clean as possible, and we want everything to be, we just want everything clean. And so the protocol you have to follow to keep everything disinfected, disinfect the systems after you milk, so it's disinfected before you milk, keep everything clean in between cows, washing off the udder prior to milking, and then putting a dip or used to be iodine. I don't know if they still use iodine now or not, but it's a disinfectant or an antibacterial situation, antibacterial substance on the end of that teat, because when you milk a cow, you have to open the street canal, has to be opened up, and the street canal leads from the milk producing cells in that quarter to the outside. So when you squeeze a teat, or put the milking machine on there and the milk comes out, it comes out through that street. And after a cow's milk, that street canal's open for a little bit until the sphincter muscle close back up and close it. And so it's a big source. It's a potential source of infection. And mastitis is when you get an infection in the udder. And if it's not treated, you can lose the cow. And depending how the severity of the mastitis infection, you can lose that quarter. It will be just shut down completely. It won't produce any more milk. Or, as I said, you can lose that cow. So you have to open up that street canal for that milk to be removed, and then you need to have an antibacterial substance on the end of that feed after you get the milk. And if you're not clean, if a cow has mastitis and you don't keep everything clean, you can pass that on to the next cow's milk. It is very contagious. Any questions?
This sounds like another dumb question, but does the cow bond with the milker?
In today's time, I don't know. It's all done with machines. In the old backyard milking cow, these cows, when that udder gets full, they get uncomfortable. And they know when it's milking time. And cows aren't dumb. They're pretty smart. And they'll line up. They know when it's time to be milked, and you can open the gates, and they'll form a line to go into that milk compartment. And cattle, like other animals, they have a pecking order. They will be the same cows in order every time you milk them. I don't know if it's really a bond or they just realize they're going to get relief after they get milked, and so they come in there. So they come in there to be milked. I don't know if it's really a bond that's formed. Does that make sense?
I don't know.
I don't know if it's a bond, but I know they get relief and they like to be, once you train them to be milked, and, it's just part of their routine, and they want to be milked. So the milking, the way they milk cows, the way you open up that street canal, there's two types of ways you can do it. You can do it with positive pressure, or you can do it with a negative pressure, a vacuum. And positive pressure would be, an example of that would be hand milking, where you physically grab the teat and you squeeze it and you squeeze that milk out. Negative pressure, like I said, it's a vacuum, and most milking, or the milking machines that we put on cows, you attach it to those teats and it forms a vacuum, and you have a vacuum there and that negative pressure pulls that milk out of the udder. And there's two types of milking systems that's used in production today. One is a pipeline. The milk will go from the milking machine transferred to a pipe that runs along the milking parlor, and it goes directly to the storage tank, and there it's chilled down. The other one is a bucket, and we don't see a lot of that today in today's dairies. But when I was at Tech, there were still a lot of dairies up in the Northeast that used a bucket system, and the cows were kept in a big barn, and they were kept in stanchions. A stanchion's kind of like a head catch deal, but they just stayed there all day. The food was in front of them, their water was in front of them. They could stand up, lay down, and you would go by, you'd have your little stool, you carry the bucket and the milkers or the milking machine, and you would put it on each individual cow, and the milk went into a bucket, and then you would go to the next cow. And it's very labor intensive. The new parlors are designed, the cows come in to a milking parlor, set of pipelines through there. You attach the machines, it goes from the machine to the pipe, and then it's piped to the storage tank. And it's a lot more sanitary than carrying that bucket around and everything like that. A lot less labor intensive, actually. Yeah, it's where you're saving on labor, it's quicker. Um, what do you think influences the quality of our milk? Yeah, there's a lot of factors, from nutrition, uh, herd health, if they're healthy, um, cleanliness, clean animals, clean equipment, and then the other thing is getting that milk cooled down as soon as possible. That milk comes out of that cow at about 100 degrees, and we take it it's shipped to the store, or it's transferred to the storage tank through those pipes, and they get it chilled down really quickly and get it down to about 40 degrees as quickly as possible. Now, do you think milk quality is important for consumers? Yeah. We don't like to drink soured milk, do we? And I don't know about you guys. Have any of y'all ever had milk, drank milk from a cow? Well, hang on, that's not right. Let me rephrase it. If you drink milk, it's probably came from a cow in the United States, unless you drink goat milk. Like somebody has a milk cow at home, and you ever drink any of the milk from the backyard milk cow? It's not pasteurized. A lot of times they usually separate out some of that cream, run it through a cheesecloth and separate some of that cream out. Have y'all ever had pretty fresh milk? Yeah, it's thick. What about you guys at Southside or Keysville or Patrick Henry or South Boston? Y'all ever had milk from somebody that has a dairy cow? Just fresh milk? Not from the store?
No.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, did you like it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
I like
good.
I like it better than store-bought milk.
Yeah, it is. We've got to be careful with some foodborne, chances of some foodborne illnesses that can be transferred, that we could get from drinking unpasteurized milk. But it's a good product most of the time. Now, if that old cow's been out grazing in the pasture, and they bring her in and milk her, and I've had some of this, and she's been grazing, got hold of some wild onions growing in the pasture, your milk smells like onion. And it's not a very pleasant drinking experience. Or buttercups. It'll make it a little bit bitter for some reason. I don't know why, but what they eat also affects the quality and therefore consumer satisfaction. When I was in graduate school, there was this guy that had a dairy farm not too far from the research station I was at, and I was working for him for a little bit. We'd go milk his cows, and I didn't stay there very long because he wouldn't pay me, and I wasn't going to milk cows at 4 o'clock in the morning and not get paid. But he did tell me, he goes, I'll pay you, but bring you a gallon jug and take some milk home. So I had free milk for a little bit, and I'd get in the freezer and get some beef out. He told me I could do that, so I did it, but he didn't pay me, so I didn't see, I personally didn't see, wasn't worth the effort for me getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, being at his place and milking cows at 4 when I wasn't going to get paid for it. Free milk wasn't going to cut it for a broke college student. I needed cash. Now, we've talked a lot about the sanitation with dairy cattle. It's very important. And, not only for biosecurity reasons of keeping our livestock healthy, but also for people. There are a lot now there's a lot of laws, federal laws, state laws, and even some local laws that regulate the dairy industry and allow you to ship grade A milk. And grade A milk is milk for human consumption. Milk for human consumption must be pasteurized to kill diseases because unpasteurized milk can cause foodborne illness. Some states, I think there's some states that allow a certain quantity of milk to be sold that's not pasteurized. Virginia is not one of them. If you're going to sell milk or cheese, it has to be pasteurized. There's a movement, some of these, how do I say this? I know the slang terms like crunchy or tree hugging, but hippie. But there's a movement of these natural food people that want to buy unpasteurized milk and drink unpasteurized milk, and they're trying to get the laws changed. Whether that will ever happen or not, I don't know. I never thought a whole lot about drinking unpasteurized milk, at least from the guy I would get milk from, or the places I would get unpasteurized milk from. Basically, as a friend of mine when I was a kid, and in that dairy I worked on. But after, I also teach a biosecurity class, and we talk about foodborne illnesses. And I was really surprised of all the foodborne illnesses that you can pick up from unpasteurized milk. And it's kind of made me rethink my philosophy on that. But anyway, Virginia does not allow the sale of unpasteurized milk or unpasteurized dairy products. Do y'all know what pasteurization is? Yeah, it's heated to a certain temperature. I don't remember what the temperature is, but it's just a flash. It's just for momentarily. It gets heated to that certain temperature to kill the microbes that cause foodborne illnesses, and then the milk's chilled down. It doesn't change the composition of the milk or anything like that. It just heats it up for a little bit. Doesn't even get to boiling. It's below the boiling point. Yeah, they are trying to regulate the methane emissions from cattle. They're trying to regulate cow farts, basically. Cow farts and burps. I don't know. It will be interesting to see what all transpires. I don't know. I haven't read the article yet. I have it on my email. But anyway, there's a lot of laws that regulate the dairy industry to make sure everything's clean. They get inspected regularly. and they do have to pass those inspections. Yep. I don't think it would be a very significant amount, and I think you would start running into the risk of your cattle dying of CO2 poisoning due to lack of oxygen. And then I think there would probably be an explosion. You know, if it built up to where you could capture that methane, I think you could run the risk of an explosion. It's political. Research has shown that the greenhouse emissions from cattle, or greenhouse emissions from agriculture, or the emissions from agriculture of greenhouse gases is about 2%. And that which comes from cattle is even, you know, when you break it down to cattle, it's even less. And when I'm saying agriculture, I'm talking tractors, I'm talking the whole gamut of agriculture production. So the amount that comes from cattle that's been proven scientifically is minuscule. And I think that's just pure politics of what they're doing in California. And that's my opinion. Like I said, it's just an opinion. They do. Pretty soon they'll be trying to monitor people. Another thing with dairy, with regulatory programs and animal health, it's biosecurity. And we hear that term, that's kind of a new buzz term now, biosecurity. You know, basically what we're trying to do with biosecurity is keep the introduction of pathogens away from our animals. How can we keep our animals healthy? How do we stop the spread of disease? How do we keep new diseases from coming onto our farm? And so, you know, dairy farmers, and I think more farmers in general need to be more vigilant with this. But poultry, swine, and dairy farm, they're pretty vigilant. We took the class one semester to Withville, and we visited a dairy there in Withville, and he told me, he said, yeah, you can come, but get those little plastic booties to wear before you come on my farm. I don't want anybody bringing anything on. So I had to order a box of those little plastic boots you put on over your shoes, just to stop, you know, just to help prevent anybody bringing anything from their farm onto his farm. A lot of poultry houses and hog operations won't even allow you in their buildings, simply for that biosecurity reason. So it is very important. And cleanliness, you know, as I said, that mastitis, it costs the dairy industry over $2 billion a year. So that milking, the milkers, man, their job is so important because they have to prevent mastitis because it's such a costly disease. It costs the industry, and it can cost that cow's life. It'll cost you money. So you do everything you can to prevent it. Now, what's one, I know sometimes we think about, when we're talking animal management, we think about record keeping, we think about nutrition, we think about reproduction. But what's one of the things that we don't talk about a whole lot that's necessary? Any ideas where I'm going with this? It's understanding the animal. Okay. You guys in here that raise cattle, or work on farms, y'all have heard the term cow savvy or cow sense or think like a cow. Have y'all ever heard those expressions?
Yes.
You have? Okay. What's that mean?
Knowledge of the cattle.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Knowledge of the cow.
Yeah, you got to know you got to know their behavior, right? You got to know how a cow thinks. And kind of understand their psychology. What makes them tick? How do they react? You know, individuals are different, but for those of y'all that work cattle very much, you kind of know what that cow's going to do before she does it, doesn't she? Don't you? Y'all agree with me?
Yep.
You know how to position yourself to make that cow move forward, right? Or if you're separating cows, you need to turn her into, you need to turn her. You kind of know where to position your body in order to get the desired response from that animal to make it go where you want it to go, right? You know when you're working cattle where to stand, so if you get kicked, it doesn't hurt as bad, right? You
Yeah,
learn
close
that
to
pretty
'em.
quick. What's that?
I said normally you should get closer to them and not farther back from them because it won't hurt
Right.
it as bad.
You're either completely out of kicking range or you're right on them. There's no in between because that's when they're going to have their maximum velocity coming with that leg. So you either right on them, so if they kick you, that it's nothing and it's going to be down low, or you're going to be out of range. If anywhere in between, it's going to hurt. I promise you. I know from experience, and so does everybody else. What's that? Yep, they will. I've had hyperextended knees. I've been kicked a few times. These animals can hurt you. They're big, they're strong, and believe it or not, they are quick. They're very quick. And you have to be able to read an animal, whether it's pigs, sheep, horses, goats, cows, whatever it is you're working or dealing with. You need to understand their behavior, and that can be, that's crucial to your success as a manager, or as a herdsman, or as a caretaker of those animals. You need to know, that they communicate through sound, odor, visual displays, through sight. We know you got to know what makes those animals tick. The more we understand those animals, the better cowmen we can become, and their welfare, the welfare that we give those animals improves. And we know, even if you just watch TV, that happy cows give happy milk, or whatever that little slogan is they use on TV for dairy. In reality, that's true. We have to keep our animals happy if we expect them to produce for us. So we have to meet their needs of nutrition, water, airflow if they're in a confinement situation. But we got to keep them happy. If they're not happy, they're not going to produce. We have to do animal welfare. That's why we're out there. For those of you that have cattle, you think of it as a money thing, but there's easier ways to make a living than calving cows out in February, and it's 0 degrees, and you're having to go out there around the clock to make sure there's nothing calving. If there is calving, you're going to get them in so the calf don't freeze to the ground. We go out there with an axe and break ice out of our water troughs or windmills. Out in Nebraska, we'd drive around with an axe and break ice in those windmill tanks. It's a hard life, but we enjoy it or we wouldn't do it, right, guys? It's very rewarding. But welfare, we have to be cognizant of our animals' needs. Now, what are some things that can cause stress to our animals? Predators. Weather. Can we control the weather? No, we can't. Any changes we make with, when the weather changes, that affects them. Heat stress, cold stress, weather effect, it can stress those animals out. When they get stressed, they tend to get sick. So that's why we try to have a good nutritional program and a good vaccination program to prevent that, because we can't control the weather. We can't keep it at the cow's ideal temperature 24/7, 365 days a year. What else can cause them stress?
Strangers.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
Strangers around the.
Stranger. If you're working cattle, you got your regular crew of working cows. They know you, and we've all seen it. For those of y'all that have cattle, you know what I'm talking about. You can get those cows in with 2 or 3 people a whole lot easier than you can with a bunch of strangers, because all of a sudden they're on high alert, right? The strangers definitely affect it. What about changing in feeds? Changing your feeding, your ingredients of the feed, or even your times you feed them. For those of you who have horses, if you have them installed, or even if you don't have them installed, like in the wintertime, and they like to be, they get on a feeding routine, especially if they're stalled, and you're late, they know it. They're pawing down the stall, right? Some horses get so stressed out they'll colic. They'll get a stomach ache because of that change in feeding times. We see that with, it can cause stress in cattle. Dairy cows have to be milked really regular. If you milk at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're going to milk at 4 o'clock every morning. You just can't back it up a couple hours. They like routine. Overcrowding can cause stress. Changing herd mate, mixing new cattle in with your herd can cause stress. Transportation, being sick, fatigue, weaning calves. Anything we do to these animals cause stress, basically. Things we don't do, like with weather, causes stress. So, we got to stay on top, make sure these animals are healthy, do what we can to prevent disease, and try to cut down stress however we can. When we think about facilities, especially, we're talking cattle here, mainly dairy cattle facilities. A lot of these dairy cows are kept in a confinement situation. They're kept in barns all day. And these barns are designed for cow comfort. They're designed to cut down diseases. We there's a lot of research done on airflow. You go to a dairy farm, I think, John, you gonna take them to Tanya's this year, there at Patrick Henry?
I don't know whether we will or not. We went to Hammocks, which was a much bigger dairy.
Uh-huh.
I haven't talked to Tanya, and depends a little on the way schedules work, and I haven't, she's quite often hard to get that one scheduled. We may do
Okay.
it, but we've gained a dairy experience, and I'm not sure that, depends on how our time works out. I don't really see doing a second, to be honest.
All right. And I don't know if I can, there's not too many dairies in my area. I don't know if I can arrange a dairy cow deal or not up in the garden. I may get y'all to give me his contact information and call him. But these facilities are designed for cow comfort. They have, you'll see fans in there that they'll blow to keep those cows cool. They usually have curtains on the side they can raise and lower according to the temperature. Misters, they'll have little pipes in there and they'll squirt out water in a mist form with that fan blowing on there to keep them at the correct temperature. So, and if I'm not mistaken, John, didn't Tanya say some of those cow mats they use are heated?
Yeah, she had some that were heated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These cow barns, they'll put mats down and then they'll put bedding on top of those mats. And these mats are even, some of these mats are heated for the wintertime. These farmers go to great extent to keep their cows comfortable. With the negative publicity we see a lot in agriculture, keep that in mind. Farmers do, good farmers do everything they can for the comfort of their animals. And dairy cows, you've got on a dairy farm, you've got cattle in different stages, different life stages, different stages of production. And their housing systems are going to differ depending on their life stage. If they're not, the cows that are milking, they're going to be in a barn, or usually they're confined and they're designed for those milking cows. The young cow that's not yet in the milking herd, they're probably going to be out on pasture. System designed for their comfort. Cows that aren't milking, they're in that dry stage. Their facilities they'll probably be out on pasture as well. But the different stages that they're in, the facilities are designed or the comfort for the cows. You got a lot of money invest. Go ahead, John.
Well, to summarize where we went, the Hammocks are milking 100 cows. They milk them on a cycle of 3 times a day, milking 24 hours a day. Filter to cool it down to about 38 degrees, and then it goes directly into a tanker, a truck that will 20 hours. Their animals never go to pasture. The milking cows are held in a confinement barn, and they've got the heifers in a sequence of barns that they're bred, but they never do go to pasture. The young calves are in a series of hutches, and they have recently put in an automated device to feed these young calves. There's a little bit of a learning process so that they know or trained to know where the milk is, and they can go and get access to this milk product at any time that they're there. And what they're trying to do is expedite the growing of the young calves up until they can get them to a size that they can breed them and work them into the herd. They have visions of going to a 1,200 cow dairy or milking parlor as soon as they can put the financing together for the parlor. This is the one farm operation that I've ever been to that has no debt load. I've never seen such an immaculate place in the way.
Wow. Pretty impressive.
Got several, $500,000 pieces of equipment there. Most of the equipment is new, appearing new. They've got about a 100-acre center pivot irrigation system in the area that they grow a lot of their corn and grain. They were seeding small grain when we were there. Had finished harvesting their corn. We visited a 14-acre pond that they had used as a water source for this center pivot. These two center pivot irrigation systems that they use. But it was a pretty impressive system. But the thing that impressed me the most, I guess, was the feeding of the young calves. They got those young calves trained to basically feed themselves. Whenever they want something, they know how to go and get it. So it's a pretty impressive deal.
Yeah, and as John said, that farm, all those animals are kept in barns throughout their lives. A series of barns. Some farms, they'll be out on different stages. They'll be out on pastures. Every farm's different. But the thing to keep in mind, their management is going to be designed for that cow's comfort. And they're thinking with that cow behavior when they're designing these systems. Because when they're designing their milking parlors and so on, that behavior is all in the back of their mind on how cattle move and how cattle flow to keep everything smooth and low stress. Now, one of the things we run into with dairy farms, when you have a lot of animals in confinement, is manure. And manure management is a big deal on dairy farms. And there's a lot of regulations that they have to follow for sanitation and pollution control. And so there's a lot of thought and consideration and science that goes into designing these facilities. Because the better they're designed, the less problems you're going to have. It's that simple. And, the management of these dairy cows is going to vary from farm to farm. John just told you an example of everything is kept inside. There are dairies out there. They're called grazing dairies, and this is kind of a novel concept. It's starting to get more popular. They're typically a smaller dairy, and these cows graze during the day, and at night they're kept outside, and the forage management of these farmers is tremendous. They get a little bit of grain when they're milked. They just come in for milking, and then they're sent back out to pasture. And they don't have the manure issues like a conventional dairy has, and they only milk like from March to December, somewhere around there. And come about November, they'll back those cows off to where they're milking just once a day, and then they dry them up in toward the end of December, and then in late February, March, they all start calving and go back into the milking again. So they get a couple of months rest. So, management of dairy cattle, it's going to vary between farms. The the way the facility designs are going to vary, and the way different stage of productions of those cows and their life cycles are going to, where they're at in their life cycle is going to vary. But as I said, everything's designed with the welfare of those animals and federal and state and local laws. Y'all have any questions about the cattle industry? We kind of looked at things at an overview with the beef and the dairy. We had some really good questions asked. Do y'all have any more questions or comments? You know enough to be dangerous? Hopefully, for those of you that's not familiar with agriculture, and I know a lot of social media, there's a lot of stuff on social media and in the news about, and you'll see it, when bad things happen, it gets on the news of mistreatment and stuff like that with livestock. And the one thing I want you guys to really understand is that producers and animal agriculture producers, they really do their best to take care of their animals. Now, there's always a few bad eggs, okay? I'll admit that. There's some people in the industry that probably shouldn't be in the industry. There's people working in the industry that probably shouldn't be working in the industry. But realize that as a whole, the industry tries to do what's best for the cows. I personally tell you from experience, I've sacrificed a lot of my own comfort to take care of cows. There's a lot of times I'd rather been in bed at at 1 o'clock in the morning and it's 0 degrees outside than I would have checking heifers. But it's a lifestyle I've chosen, and I do it. I've done it. And crawl out of the bed and go through my heifers and my cows in calving season. But don't believe everything you hear on social media, and before you pass judgment, get all the facts. Okay. Yep. Right. They're very strict on the harvesting of these of animals. And the thing is that a lot of people don't understand outside of the industry. So for you two back there in John's class that are culinary students, understand that when these animals are harvested, if they're not harvested in a humane way and in a low stress way, that affects the eating quality of that meat. Okay? If these animals are stressed right before slaughter, if they get, if they're being banged on to push up into the chutes or to get closer to that kill floor, if they're not well-designed facilities, you're going to have bruising of that meat. It's going to have to be cut away. It's going, and hormones are released that can affect the quality of that meat. It can affect the muscle glycogen in there and make that meat turn really dark and make it be really tough. So animal welfare is important all the way through harvest. It's just not with the producer. It's all the way through to the slaughterhouse. Thanks for bringing that up. That's something important that you guys need to know, because, we raise these animals to be harvested to feed people. And that that harvesting has to be just as humane as where, you know, that whole procedure, uh, as it is to get them to that stage to be harvested. Any other questions or comments?
Along those lines, I was just reading in the paper, and I'm not Jewish, but there's the Jewish New Year's coming up, and they were making a big thing about kosher way of doing beef and stuff. Is that something
Right.
that's done at the producer's level, or is that something that's done at the slaughter's level? It didn't go into any details.
From what I understand on that, Keith, it's slaughter, and it's the way that they're slaughtered, right?
I don't know.
Okay, hold on a second. Can you hear Keith speak? He's our slaughter expert. They had a slaughterhouse. Can you speak up? Not Keith. Evan or Joseph, whatever you want to go by. Evan.
Can't hear him at all, Dwayne.
Okay. He's saying that from the midsection forward, they consider kosher. From the midsection back, it's considered unclean. And it's also with the way they're slaughtered, right? Like the best I remember, when we slaughtered lambs in my slaughter class at Tech, we were slaughtering them under kosher standard. You had to have a rabbi there to bless them or something like that. Okay, and then we had to bleed them out. I mean, we had to go in there and slice that jugular vein. Right. It's for religious reasons. Otherwise, it has to be through the captive bolt system, or got to be stunned. But they weren't. Okay. Part of that too is the slaughter process, Keith, about having their throat sliced for that kosher, and that's the only time that's allowed, is just for religious purposes. Everything else, the animal has to be stunned before it's slaughtered. Before you guys leave, I wanted to correct myself the other day. Yield grade, we were talking about yield grade of beef. Ideally, the yield grade is 1 because that's the highest amount of cuttable retail meat. The industry average is about 3. So I just wanted to correct myself on that. All right, guys, looks like we're out of time, and we'll pick up chapter 8 Thursday. It's all shop placement. That's just I've eaten, I've eaten buffalo before.